Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I trust everyone is well. My name is Charles Scott from Civil Designer Software. Thank you for allowing the time to join us today for the third of this four-part Civil Designer Software version 8.5 mini-series launch. The final webinar in this series will take place next Thursday, the 11th of November, with version 8.5 being released on the same day. As attendees of this webinar series, we'll directly email you the version 8.5 download link next Thursday. As part of the civil engineering industry, your daily job more than likely includes the preparing and reviewing of many types of different design drawings, which essentially means that the information conveyed in these documents, be they digital or hard copy, is by far the most important of all project communications. This is where Civil Designer has the added advantage of, in the same application, being able to easily customize, produce and manage all types of project drawings directly from Civil Designer's database of live design information, thus guaranteeing the accurate presentation of the design team's work, allowing for more design freedom. Historical versions of these drawings can be published out of Civil Designer as PDFs, DWGs, DR4s, and DXFs to reflect past design revisions, with the live production drawing copies remaining part of the project, where there is absolutely no limitation on the number of live layouts, plot sets, or design element lengths. This brings us to today's presentation, where we welcome back Christopher Smith, who will be covering production drawing creation and management in Civil Designer version 8.5. During Christopher's time today, please feel free to use the text chat service on your GoToWebinar app or web page to ask us any questions you may have during his time. After today's webinar, we'll post a video copy on our website in the webinar section. So, good afternoon again, Chris, and please take it away.
Thanks, Charles, and welcome everybody to this webinar. Today we're going to be looking at sheet files and some of the new enhancements to the sheet files to make your experience working with them a lot more easier. Some of you may wonder what sheet files are. This is an application within Civil Designer to take your databases and your 3D models. So it could be sewer, stormwater, water, or roads, and it'll create 2D drawings. These drawings could be used for design review purposes or for construction drawings. To give you a brief overview of what we're going to be doing in today's webinar, we'll be looking at the new roads filter and the ability to choose which road setting out information you want plotted in a tabular form. We'll then be looking at the new selection handles for the long sections and the cross sections. When it comes to the long sections, we're going to be discussing the order of preference that has changed in the sheet file settings. The developers have opened up the properties bar to be used inside the sheet files. So you'll now be able to edit different items within the sheet files, and we're going to be discussing that in a little bit more detail later on in this webinar. When it comes to the long sections data area, we're going to be looking at some of the new tools to edit these data areas inside the sheet file settings and inside the long section region. When it comes to the long sections for the roads and the pipes modules, you no longer need to populate the tables. These will automatically populate for you. We're going to be discussing that in a little bit further in depth during the webinar. And then we'll be looking at the new schematic information for your road components that has now been embedded into the sheet file. We'll then be looking at the new ability to add the offset and elevations for the add-on strings on the road long sections. We'll then look at the new feature of publishing your layouts directly to PDF. Let's dive straight into the new roads filter. So I'm going to plot this road over here, and I don't want any setting out information for any of the other roads. So I'll go across to plot, generate, and I'm going to choose the road composite. So for those that are not sure, you can always find a host of sheet files under C drive users, public documents, knowledge base, sheet files. I normally make a shortcut key for this on my desktop. Here you'll find a whole lot of sheet files that you can use, and I'm going to use the road composite sheet file. I'm going to choose to plot these dynamically as layouts in my drawing. If any changes take place, the drawing will automatically update, as well as the setting out information. I'm going to choose to plot this long section at a scale of 1000 in the horizontal and 100 in the vertical. Here you can see it has extracted all the data for the bands in the long section, as well as for plotting this information in the graph. For the cross sections on the side, I'm going to just choose the natural ground and the final design, and I will just quickly check if I have this in the right location. That is nice and centered. I'm just going to change the scale so that it is zoomed in a little bit better. Great. Here you can see, now we can go to the roads filter, and I only want that road to show. So I'll say select none, and I'll choose just to plot that road for the setting out information. Here you can see it has plotted out the drawing for me, and it has only given me the setting out information for that street. The next item that we're going to be looking at is the selection handles for both the long sections and the cross sections. In the past, these handles were not available, and you had to change the setting out information in the sheet file editor. This was time consuming as it was an iterative process. You can now do this graphically in your sheet file editor. Let's go and have a look. I'm going to go to the sheet file editor mode, and I think we'll load up the sheet file that we've just used, which was the road composite. You'll see that when I select in this area here, we've got the 3 new handles that are now available for you to move and adjust the long section. The first handle that I'm going to look at is the top right hand side. You'll see that once I hover the mouse over it, I have the ability to then move it. I'm currently in freehand mode, and you do have the ability to use your geometry lines and snap using the geometry snap feature or any of the snap features. So you can really make this more accurate. As you can see, as I move this line, it will update the height of the graph area and the length of the data area. The next selection handle is in the top of the data area. If I hover the mouse over here, you'll see that as I move it, it updates the whole table's position relative to the long section region. If you're not sure where the long section region is, you can always select the edge here, and I'm just going to press shift and deselect that. So now that I've got my long section region, you can always confirm it in your properties bar. Lastly, the bottom left handle, if you select it, you have the ability to expand and move your heading area. Let's move over to the cross sections. As you can see, with these cross sections, if I select it, I will be able to select a line. Let's just quickly go to our properties and see what we've selected. There's a cross section line. This is what I'm looking for with the 4 selection handles. So you'll see when I hover the mouse over the bottom right hand side, you will see as you move the mouse, these will update according to its y-axis. the top right, as I move that, it will also update according to the y-axis. The top left will shift it on the y-axis and the x-axis, but it will also update its height. And on the bottom left will only update it not in size but in position according to the y-axis and x-axis. The next item on the agenda is to look at the sheet file settings for the long section. Let's just zoom in onto the long sections data area. You'll notice that we've got these in order here, but we never had them in order in the sheet file settings. We've changed this up now so that your sheet file settings has one line for each type of data. In the past we had a section for the plotting, which is the graph that gets drawn at the top, and another section for the data. We've now made one line for both, and you can just expand that to see both the lines and the data that gets put into the data section. You'll also notice that we've changed it up that your data will always be in order of the min y max y, so that they match up with the order on the drawing as well. So once you've expanded this, it'll become a bit clearer on your side. And you also now have the ability to move things up and down automatically. So in the past you always had to repopulate these if you wanted to move them down. You can now move them down and it will move down as you need them to be. You can also notice that, for instance, the super elevation left and right has the same populated min y and max y. You can do this automatically by linking it to the above row or the below row. In this case, I can unlink it because those two have been linked already. Another application for this would be in your pipes module. You have the ability to link the percentage and rise over run. Just to recap, as you can move rows up and down and delete rows, you also have the ability to do that in the long section region area as well. So you have the ability to move rows up and down, delete rows, and you can also apply a uniform row height. The next area that I'm going to touch on is the opening up of the properties bar in the Sheetfile editor. So you no longer need to go to the Sheetfile settings to change colors and other attributions of the entities that you see in front of you. In the past you would go to settings, Sheetfile settings, and find it. In recent years they've opened up the software that you can click on any item and you can go to Sheetfile settings, and it should take you directly to the place to change those attributes. To make it even faster and more user friendly, they've opened up the properties bar. So let's have a look at that. If we click on an item and we go to properties, you now have the ability to change the color directly in this properties bar. So we can go and change colors and other attributes in it. You'll notice that I can click on any sort of entity and it'll come up with its attributes, which I can change over here. I can even change the height if I want and the text style. We also have the ability to update and change items on the listings as well. So here you can see I've got the pen. I can change the pen frame. So if we go and change the pen frame to green, for instance, you'll see that the outline changes. I can also go to the water schedule and change, for instance, this node. Because I've selected on the word text, can go and change the item. So let's look for the pen color for the text. Let's change that to, say, red, and you'll see it updates. Great. This also extends to the cross sections. So the cross sections, you also can change attributes, for instance the pens and color styles as well. So we can go, now that we've selected this particular item, we can go and change its attributes. You can also change attributes of lines that you've selected, so that will also update. One of the other items in the properties bar that's been added is best shown in a new sheet file when creating a sheet file from scratch, which is not something I always recommend. I always recommend you take one of the already existing sheet files and just edit it to what you need. But let's go and have a look at a new sheet file. So we'll close this one down, and I'll go to Applications, Sheet File Editor. If we select the global region, you'll see now we have this preset paper of A0. You can go and change it to say A1, just to have an idea of what an A1 area looks like. We are not going to give you the absolute limits of the A1 or the ISO paper sizes, because we recognize that you still want to have a border around that site. I always recommend that the bottom left stay on position 0, 0. It just makes everything work a lot better that way, because all your other regions are linked to that. We'll keep that at A0, and we will have a look at one of the other features that has come into the software recently. If we go to Settings, Sheet File Settings, and we go look at our long sections, for instance, let's look at the roads data. There isn't any road data, and in the past you would have to go and populate all this information, but now what you can do is go to create the layout. I'm going to bring in the chainages, and I'm going to bring in all the other road information through as well. I'm going to choose my row height to be 150 mils, and I'd like the program to automatically create the lines for me and the long section titles as well. So I'll press OK, and that's all populated. The only item I would change here is to have 3 decimal places. Great, so we can then press OK, and that will come through in the table for us. Like I say, if you have anything you want to edit, you can edit it in the long section region, but you also have the ability to go to your sheet file settings and you can edit it here as well. The next item is also to do with long sections, but we're going to be looking at the road components, and it's schematically represented on a long section region. Let's go and have a look at how this will work. I'm going to close the sheet file editor for now. And I'm going to change over to a road that has components in it. Here you can see, if I go to the roads mode and I go to section graphical edit, you can see there's a number of road components, sidewalks, guardrails and gabions. What we can first do is open up the sheet file in the editor just to have a look at it. I'm going to load up the sheet file. Here you can see with the road components have been written in text on the left hand side, and the lines will be plotted on the right hand side whenever there is that item to be found in the road or along the road. Here you can see this one is the gabions. There's 2 lines here, and we're going to cover that because there's 2 different gabions that are being used. The same would be for the V-drains. You can get different size V-drains, and you'd probably want to have different lines to represent that. I'll close this off and we can go and plot. We'll then go to plot to generate. I'll use that new sheet file. And here you can see we've got the first lines here to deal with the types of road components that we're using. We're not going to be plotting lines along the top, but we are labeling. So we must, I know normally you'd want to plot lines, but in this case we are labeling lines, as we are going to be extracting lines for the road components, and then the type of road components that you'll be using, and the road that you're going to, the layer that is stored in. Here you can see it will either plot lines or leave gaps, depending on whether there's a component for that item at that stake value or not. And here you can see, if we zoom in, where the guardrails, gabions and V-drains are found, it will plot the schematic line. In the next section we're going to be looking at the add-on string islands and how to get that to plot in your data area of your long sections. Let's go have a look at a sheet file I've just created using the tools found in this webinar. I'll go over to Sheetfile Editor and I'll load up the sheet file that I want to use. So I took an existing sheet file and I edited it, adding the add-on string offset, and I'm going to be using line number 5, and the add-on string elevation. What I also did, if we have a look at the sheet file settings, is I edited the name of it so that it would show up during the plot generation routine wizard. Then I won't have to remember what lines 1 or lines 5 and 6 are for. Great, so we can close this editor. Let's just close this. And we can go to our plan view. I've got an island on the top of this road for a bus embayment. At the moment it's not an island, it's just a lightweight polyline, so I'll just quickly convert that. In roads mode, I'm going to go to tools, add-on string from polyline, and I'd like to select that to get its levels from the main road. So we're going to call this bus island. The reason it shades it is because there might be CAD entities underneath the road which you'd want to be selecting. Good, so it will ask us if we want to indicate another polyline. I'm just going to press escape, and now we've got our island here. We can have a look at it in render view. The island is here. So we would like to along this road where the road picks up levels, and then it will display it in the data section of the long section. So let's escape this. Great, so we can plot this out to a layout. Let's go to plot generate. I'm going to use my single carriageway with add-on strings, and I'm going to go next. And I'm just going to change this to stake value 0 to 500 for now. We'll leave the scales, and you can see earlier where I showed you in the sheet file setting where we renamed those lines 5 and 6. So now I know which one is the offset and which one is the elevation. So I'll go across here. So I set that to offset, that one to elevation for the extraction. For the type, it needs to be a road string. And you can see that we generate the add-on strings are also displayed along with all the other strings for the road. You can also get the top and back of curbs levels if you wished. We're going to label, and we're not going to plot lines for those items. We just move this across. There's lines 5 and 6, and you can see during the bus embayments it actually finds the data. So we can go to finish, and here you can see the bus bay is around stake value 50. So at the increments that you've specified in the coordination of the road, you're going to get your values plotted along the route for the offsets and for the elevations. Great, let's just close this now. In this last segment, we're going to be looking at publishing your layouts to PDF directly. So we'll go over to the layouts. I'll just press R on the keyboard. I'm going to go to plot publish, and you can select the PDFs or the layouts that you'd like to plot publish to PDF. Here you can see I'm going to publish the PDF. You'll see combine all selected layouts into one PDF. So it's the ones that you've selected here that can be combined into one PDF, or you can deselect that and plot each one to an individual PDF. You can use the BIM naming convention for the files. These will automatically be generated from this. But we're not going to do that today. And I'm going to press OK. Then let's just call this road combo 1. And I'm going to publish this as grayscale. I'm going to use a resolution of 1200. We'll then zoom to extents because we want to not to zoom to the outer CAD, but we want to zoom to the border. We also don't want to convert the text to geometry, so we'll press OK. That then gets exported, so we'll go to Windows E, and I'm going to just browse to my folder, and we can open this up with Adobe. So there you can see it's plotted its grayscale, and you could now print this to a plotter. Thanks very much for your time. I hope you have learned a lot. Please let us know if you've got any questions. I hope you have a great day further. Cheers for now. Back to you, Charles.
Thank you very much, Chris. That was very interesting. And more importantly, thank you very much to all of you who attended today's third version 8.5 webinar launch. Please join us next week at the same time and place being the same link, where Cameron Boyle and Andrew Cole will be covering the new functionality included in our roads module. Should you require any further information with regards to today's demonstration, please use the email address listed on your screens right now. Please also visit our website and follow our Civil Designer Software company page on LinkedIn. Once again, thank you very much for your time today. See you next Thursday. Have a great afternoon, weekend, and goodbye for now.